Hello and welcome. In this video, I'm going to show you how to calculate the weight and balance for a R22 helicopter. I'm Nick, a commercial helicopter pilot and instructor from South Africa. If you're a student pilot and you've never calculated a helicopter weight and balance before, it may seem a little bit daunting at first, but never fear, it's not actually a very hard calculation. We'll run through it on Excel and just go through it step by step so you really understand how it works. And then I'll show you how to calculate it really fast on an app. You're going to need a R22 manual. If you don't have one, you can download it off the Robinson website. We're going to use section 2 limitations, section 6 weight and balance. You can just download the whole manual. Okay, in section 2, we're going to use the limitations chart. That's on page 2.5 for the beta 2. Don't use the one on page 2.4 because that's a Robbie 22 standard or HP. And the other thing we're going to use in limitations is on page 2.8 is the fuel capacity limits. So yeah, we'll use those two things. And then section 6, the whole section is weight and balance. I recommend just reading through the whole thing. It's only a couple of pages. The main piece we're going to be using though is the loading instructions, which is page 6.4, and that has the loading stations or the longitudinal and lateral arms of all the items inside the aircraft. So you will also just need to get the weight and balance, the empty weight for your specific aircraft. So that will be in section 6 of the pilot's operating manual that's in the aircraft. There's a weight document where they weigh the aircraft with its longitudinal center of gravity and its empty weight, which most Robbie 22s weigh about 880 pounds. So we're just going to use that. And most of their longitudinal center of gravities are about 104, somewhere around that. So we're just going to use those figures, but you need to fill in the figures for your aircraft. The weights in pounds, and the longitudinal arm is in inches. And when we times the weight by the arm, we get the moment for each item. So that document in section 6 will have the moment for the aircraft as well, but you can just calculate it by multiplying the weight of the aircraft by the longitudinal arm, which is what we're going to do here, and we'll get the moment for the helicopter. Helicopters usually helicopter's lateral center of gravity is usually 0, the empty one. So we'll just put in a lateral center of gravity of 0 and a lateral moment of 0. Okay, so now we can start filling in items. The pilot, that's your weight. So let's pretend I weigh 180 pounds. Then we need to reference the section 6 of the flight manual to see the pilot and baggage longitudinal arm is 78. See there's an asterisk, so you see what it means. And if your aircraft has a serial number of lower than 256, then you use an arm of 79, but that was, I think, 20-30 years ago those aircraft existed. So yeah, all the aircraft I've flown in have been higher serial numbers than that, so we use an arm of 78 and times the arm by the weight, same as you do for the empty aircraft, and you get the moment of the pilot. Okay, now we need to work out the lateral moment as well. Everything on the right hand side of the helicopter is positive and everything on the left hand side of the helicopter is negative when you're talking about the lateral center of gravity. So the pilot's CFG is positive 10,7. So you put that in, and then the lateral moment for the pilot is going to be 10,7 times by the weight, 180, and we'll land up with a lateral moment of 1926. Co-pilot or instructor, person sitting in the left seat, we'll go with passenger. Let's make them 200 pounds, and so they have the same longitudinal arm. They're in line with each other, so that's 78. And then the lateral moment, same method as before, weight times by arm. So it's going to be slightly more than the pilot's moment. And their lateral center of gravity was negative 9,3. And to work out their moment times by their weight, and you get negative 1860. So now we add up the totals to find out the empty fuel weight. So we can figure out what the center of gravity is going to look like with empty fuel. And then we'll add fuel and do takeoff configuration as well. So start just by auto summing the weights, and we get 1260. The maximum all-up weight for R22 is 1370. So that leaves us 110 pounds for fuel. Okay, and now to calculate the center of gravity for the helicopter, we first have to total up the moments for the aircraft and both passengers, and the lateral moments as well. So we total all of the moments, and then we calculate the CFG by dividing the moment by the weight. And we get a center of gravity with no fuel of 96,2. And a lateral center of gravity of 0,1 to the right. So just right of the center of the helicopter. The key numbers that we want out of a weight and balance are the empty weight, empty longitudinal arm, and empty lateral arm. So we've got those, and then we want the takeoff configuration, those three numbers as well. Those 6 numbers are the key things we're looking for to put into our weight and balance chart and see if we're within limits. I like to work out a fuel table first. So let's just put in 50% fuel. And this will calculate the weight of the fuel in the tank, and then it just keeps the whole weight and balance calculation a bit cleaner. So we've got a main tank and aux tank. We can combine them into one, but we're just going to keep it at 2 separate lines because I prefer doing it that way. So we've got main fuel and we've got aux fuel, and then we'll put in the capacity of each tank, which we will get out of section 2, page 8, I think it was. So we're going to go with the R22 with bladder tanks. We've got a main tank capacity of 18,3 gallons and an aux tank of 9,7 gallons. That's US gallons. Okay. Okay, and now we'll fill in the actual amount of fuel that we'll be taking off with. So we'll reference that 50% and multiply it by the capacity of the tank. And we'll see that our main tank with 50% fuel is at 9,15 US gallons, and our aux tank is at 4,85. Now the weight is in pounds is 6 pounds to 1 US gallon. So take your fuel that you're taking off with, times it by 6 pounds, and you get the weight of the fuel. Okay, so the weight of the fuel in the main fuel tank, which is 9,15 gallons, is 54,9 pounds. Do the same for the aux tank, and we'll add up the total weight of 84 pounds. So we've got 84 pounds of fuel, and then we can just reference the fuel table so that when we change the percentage, it automatically updates the weight and balance calculation. Okay, so if we want the center of gravity of each tank, just you can see the asterisks, so we read there that we can combine them and use a CFG of 106,9, but we're going to keep them split up and use 108,6 and 103,8. I just prefer to keep them separate. So main tank has a center of gravity of 108,6, aux tank 103,8, and then the lateral, well, let's work out the moment for the fuel first. So the 4.5 moment is arm times weight, same as the every other item. And then the lateral, the main tank is on the left side, and that is -11 is the arm, and the aux tank is 11,2 inches. Right hand side, so times the weight by the arm. So you see weight and balance, it's very similar. All the items, you're just doing exactly the same thing. So yeah, there's not too much to know. You just got to calculate one or two and you'll remember what you have to multiply by what to get the answer. So now we can calculate the totals for the takeoff weight. So empty fuel weight plus fuel, we get 1,344 pounds. Limits 1,370, so we 26 pounds below takeoff limits. And then we need to calculate the longitudinal center of gravity. But first we total up the moments. So empty fuel moment plus the fuel moments give us the takeoff fuel moment, takeoff weight moment, divided by the takeoff weight of 1,344, and we get a takeoff center of gravity of 96,8. Do the same laterally, and we get a lateral CFG for takeoff of -0,2. So our weight is going to go from 1,344 towards 1,260, and our center of gravity is going to go from 96,8 towards 96,2. The fuel tanks are quite far back, so as the fuel burns off, the center of gravity of the aircraft moves forward. Okay, and the center of gravity, the left tank's the bigger one, so as the fuel burns off, the center of gravity moves from the left side of the helicopter, -0,2, towards the right hand side, but they're very close to the center, so they're virtually irrelevant in this case. Lateral CFG is more relevant when you've got one person in the aircraft, or you start loading things, you know, heavier weights towards the sides of the helicopter. Okay, we can change the fuel and see what happens. So if we put in 100% fuel, you see we over max all up weight of 1,428. So that's good 58 pounds over max all up weight. So that would be illegal. And you can see our center of gravity has moved way further back to 97,4. Obviously you can't take off with that configuration. It's just interesting to see what it does to center of gravity. You can also see the lateral center of gravity moves to 0,3, -0,3, even further left. Okay, let's put it back to 60% fuel. That puts us 9 pounds under max all up. Takeoff weight. Okay, so now we'll take these figures and plot them in the chart. So again, just make sure you're using the beta 2 chart on page 25. Okay, the top piece of the chart, the top block is dealing with longitudinal center of gravity. The bottom one is dealing with lateral center of gravity. So we work out the top one first. On the left-hand column, you've got the weight in pounds. So we're going to have a takeoff weight of 1,361 with 60% fuel. So that's 9 pounds below the takeoff limit of 1,370. So we're going to be just below that line. Okay, so you put your weight in first and then find your takeoff longitudinal center of gravity 97. Okay, so then we find the 97 line, and where the intersection is, right up there in the corner, right up there where the mouse is now, that's your takeoff center of gravity. And then we're going to be moving towards 1260 and 96,2. So that's around where the 7 is in the 1275. That would be our empty fuel center of gravity longitudinally. So the center of gravity is going to move from that one point to the other point. Okay, now in the lateral center of gravity, we are moving from negative 0,2 to 0,1 positive. So our takeoff longitudinal center of gravity is 97. So you can take that 97 line all the way down to where it intersects negative 0,2 to the left. So very close to the center where the mouse is now. That's pretty much your takeoff center of gravity, just a tiny bit left of center. And then it's going to move to 1, and it moves quite a bit forward. So to 96,2. So it's going to move to just right to that center line and further forward. So we are well within center of gravity limits with 60% fuel. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to calculate the same weight and balance in an app called Tool in the Cockpit. It's available on the iOS App Store and the Google Play Store on phones and tablets. So if we open up the app and we go into the R22, if we go into weight and balance, then usually I start by going into edit mode and save this aircraft's registration. I'm just using my name, mainly so that we can reference this aircraft again without filling in these details again. You can save as many aircraft as you want to. The empty weight was 880 and the longitudinal arm was 104.0. So if we save that, then you'll see there's items here, the pilot, co-pilot, and their baggage. We didn't have baggage in the XL version that we did, so I can delete these items, but I could also just leave them there and put the weight in as 0. Okay. Let's go out of edit mode, and you can see here we have sliders for the weights. So if we edit with a slider, you can see the weight and balance moving around. So let's put the pilot weight at 180. It's sometimes hard to get it to the exact number. So if you tap on the weight, then I can just enter it. And the co-pilot we had in as 200 pounds. Okay. You can see here, if we exceed a weight and balance, the items start turning red. You can see the maximum weight for the pilot, the co-pilot, and or either of the seats actually with the baggage is 300 pounds, or is it 240 pounds? I think it's 240 pounds, but it'll tell you down here. Co-pilot baggage weight is 250 pounds, which is over the limit of 240 pounds by 10 pounds. Okay, and then we've also exceeded our takeoff weight and a bunch of our CFGs. You can see it in the chart and in the writing at the bottom. So if we take that co-pilot baggage back to 0, then we're within weight and balance exactly the same as we were with the XL version. You can see with our fuel here, it shows fuel in percentage, liters, US gallons, kilograms, and pounds. Sometimes, you've got a fuel truck in liters. Your weight and balance is, or your gauges in a Robbie is in US gallons, and most of the time you want to know how much percentage fuel you have, so it tells you all those things together, and it's also on a slider. Then you can sign your weight and balance. I've signed this one before. Just clear it. It does remember your previous signatures. Let's just do a cross again, and you can put your name in there and save it. And then when you print your weight and balance, so we can print and email. So let's print this one, and you'll see here is a printout of the weight and balance. That whole calculation table that we did in Excel is in the bottom left, and It's signed, your name's on it, the weight, the aircraft registration, everything. Thank you for watching. Hopefully this cleared up some confusion if you're struggling with your weight and balance. I'll be doing weight and balance videos on the Robbie